Hello everybody, it's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com. I'd like to welcome everybody to my brand new masterclass series for July 2021. During this month, we are going to be talking about ribbon. We're going to talk about tying bows and tying perfect square knots, tips with ribbon, all kinds of great things in the masterclass regarding ribbon. I think you're going to really enjoy the series for the month, and we're going to kick things off by learning how to create a bow. Probably my most commonly asked question is, Connie, how do you tie a bow? So we're going to tackle that. I'm going to teach you some different ways, 12 to be exact. How about that? 12 different ways that you can add a bow to a card. So we're going to head over to my new stamping table and we are going to get started. All right, my friends, let's create a basic bow. This is the simplest way to tie a standard bow. I will tell you, I do like to leave my ribbon on the spool. I just find it's a little bit easier. So I'm just going to pull some ribbon off of here. And this is as simple as what I like to call the bunny ear method. This is the way my mama taught me how to tie my shoes. And so I still use it today. We're just going to simply fold over the ribbon like so. All right. Very simple. I created two bunny ears. Actually, looks like Mickey Mouse. Oh, all right. So we've got those two together. You see the tails are on the front. There's my two bows. We're simply just going to tie it. Just tie them together. That's it. Now, before we go and tie this tight, okay, we're going to do a little manipulation to make it look pretty. So we want to make sure the center of our bow kind of gets nice and flat. See, remember it was twisted a second ago? Now I'm going to make these loops kind of tiny because when I pull, ready, pull, now we have our nice little center. And this also gives me the ability, now I can, if I want my bows to be open, if I want my loops to be open, I can do that now. And you can see it's just how I'm twisting the ribbon. Okay, do you want it to be open? Like that. If you want them to be flat, it's as simple as grabbing the loops together, grabbing both of those, giving that a tug, and then you will have your loops together this way. Really up to you. Now, what we can do is just simply go snip and snip. I always like to go at an angle. You can see I got a little too long right there, not a problem. I can just snip that. And then you can simply add that right there to your card. Now, this really is good for mailing. It does, you can see it still stays nice and flat, but sometimes mailing can be tricky when it comes to bows, right? So I'm going to teach you how to create a faux bow. All right, this is a great way to add the bow directly to a card, and it's going to look like a bow, but it's also going to be nice and flat. Let me teach you that one. So for the faux bow, I've got just a piece of cardstock here I'm going to teach it to you on. You would do this on an actual card. I have a 1/4-inch hole punch. This is a standard office size hole punch. You probably already have one. If not, it's one that I use quite often. And all we're going to do is we're going to punch one hole, and then we're going to punch another hole right next to it. And you're going to want to try to line those up like so. The amount of space in between is going to determine how wide the knot is in the middle. So I'll tell you what, we're going to do two that are kind of close together. And then I'm going to come over here and let's go a little further apart. And that way you can see two different versions of the faux bow, and also known as a no tie bow. I've got some ribbon here. I believe I've probably got about 6 or 7 inches. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to make sure you cut the ends at a point. Okay, so we want to just cut at an angle so that we have these points. Those are kind of important. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a point. Again, let's pretend this is the front of our card. So we're going to go from the front and we're going to take both those points into our cardstock and they're going to go down. Okay. I'm going to flip this over. You're going to line it up, center it up here. And now we're just going to reverse these. So I'm going to bring the left over to the right over to the left. And now we're going to take those points. You notice I'm kind of tugging this, pulling it away. It's going to expose that hole much easier. And now we come back to the front. Let's do that right here. The same way, the points through. And you'll bring that to the front. And you can see this also, just like I kind of showed you in the last one, you have the ability to kind of manipulate the ribbon. And you see that gives you a really nice little faux bow. So I could trim this down, and there we have a nice little faux bow. I'm going to repeat that with this separated a little bit more, and I want you to be able to see what it looks like if you needed that to be a little bigger. So same method, the points go down the front of the card, flip it over, right to the left, left to the right. We'll go back through. By the way, it doesn't matter which one goes in first. So just whatever is in your hand, you are welcome to go ahead and start with that one. It's nice to know there's not a real right or wrong way. And there you can see, do you see how the knot in the middle is a little bit bigger? Looks really nice. We can now trim this one down. And there you go. That's the no tie bow. Now, if your ribbon is not as thick, let's say you've got a really thin ribbon. Well, here's what you're going to do. This hole punch is probably going to be a little too big. So let me show you what you can do instead. So that's what it looks like when you use the hole punch. But for this one, we're going to use your take your pick tool. I have my pierce mat, my stamping mat underneath me. And I will tell you, I leave this side for stamping, the one with the logo. And I flip it over and I use this side for piercing. So I've got the paper piercer end of my take your pick tool. If you guys remember, that twists off. There's a spatula on the other end, twist on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a poke, okay? Now I'm going to take it off the mat and I'm just going to run it all the way through and just kind of, I'm just twisting it in a circle to kind of make that hole just a little bit bigger. So for these, remember, it's a smaller ribbon that we're going to do. So we want these a little more close together than we did on that other bow, because remember, the ribbon was thick. So it made for a very nice center to our no tie bow. But for this one, when we're using smaller ribbon, we do want that a little closer together. So let's bring in some less wide ribbon. How about this pretty little red ribbon from the Playful Pets? Yeah, that's it. And again, we're going to make sure we have a nice point. And let's give ourselves a point here. And you guys know the trick. We're simply going to go in. Remember, this is the front of my card. So we're going to poke this in. Now I'm going to tell you, when you use your take your pick tool, can you see it leaves some, stuff here on the back. So if you need to just push that out of the way, you can. Remember, it's on the back. No one's going to see it. We'll put this one through as well. Hey, let me give you another trick. If you're struggling, like this is just not going through, another thing that you can do, let me take my scissors here and show you, is you can literally cut. I'm cutting at a big angle. I'm going to zoom in. So can you see how much of an angle I did that at? That actually is very, very helpful when you're doing these tiny holes and smaller ribbon, because look, oh, went right through that time. Yeah, so just cut that at a really, really fine angle. Now you see it did shred on me. And if it does, you just trim it again. Remember our trick, and we reverse, and we're just going to go back through. And so you can see this one is very, very little. I don't think I recommend real red on cherry cobbler, but I did want you to see how to create just a little tiny faux bow. Now, the one thing you need to remember too about these types of bows is they can't fall off, all right? They are attached. So if you struggle with maybe your bows falling off of your card, don't worry about it. Use the faux method, and then you know that bow is always attached and you don't have to worry about it. How about another method with the faux method, or the faux bow method, only we're going to really make it a bow. All right, here we go. We're going to do another one. All right, so for a faux bow with bows that actually looks like a bow and a little less like a knot, we're going to do the same method. So you see I've punched my 2 holes. I'm going to give myself a little bit more ribbon this time. So I'm going to guess it's probably about 8 inches of ribbon. Remember, we've got our little points. And what we're going to do is the same thing you've seen me do, which is from the front to the back. Let's go ahead and pull that through. And now we're going to do what you've seen me do, which is pull these back through to make that faux bow. Remember that little faux knot kind of thing. All right, so remember, you're familiar with this one, right? Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this longer tab and we're going to go back through, and then we'll take this bow or this loop, and you can see we've created our little loops. And you just come from the back here to decide what size you want your loops to be. Now there's just a simple bow, right? Right, very easy. Again, we can manipulate the loops and make them open if we want. But what if you want those tails? Okay, well, look, I've left myself plenty of ribbon back here. Can you guess? We're simply going to go cross back through like we did before. So we're going to use the opposite side. We're going to come back through. Now for this one, you really do need to use that 1/4 inch hole punch. You're going to need a pretty wide hole punch to get that. We're going through this hole several times, right? So we want to make sure we have enough room. So when you come back through, you've got enough. And look, we'll just trim it down. And now we have a true faux bow, right? Attached there on the back, not coming off. And this is one, just another faux bow method where we can have an actual bow, the actual tails, and it's just a little bit different than our knotted version. But keep in mind the knotted versions lay nice and flat. This one does have a little more bulk in the back. So when you attach this to a card front, I would probably suggest some Stampin' Dimensionals to help deal with the bulk that's in the back. So to tie a piece of ribbon around a card, let's say we want to go inside the card. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my ribbon in. Again, it's still on the spool. It's just easier for me. And even if I might have a little bit of waste, that doesn't bother me as much as cutting the ribbon too short because that irritates me. So you're going to want to go a little bit longer than your card. I've got maybe about another 2 inches or so coming off my card. Okay. I'm going to tie this to the right side of my card. All right. So remember, this is the piece that's still on the spool. Here we go. We're going to go left over right and under. Okay, left over right and under. It's going to go up. Now we're going to give this a pull. Typically, like when we tie our shoes, we go like this, right? Well, we want to actually go up and down. That is very important to the direction that your bow is going to lay and how pretty your bow is going to go. So remember, it's not like this, it's straight up and down. And when we do this, we want to see that's still kind of loose there in the middle. Watch what happens if I give it a really tight. See how it almost locks it in place, and that is what you want. So I'm going to hold that there with my finger. I'm going to take the piece that's here on the bottom and I'm going to make my bunny ear. And now I'm going to take what's at the top. So this is the one with the tail. And we're going to go over the bunny ear. And then we're going to go under it, right behind. Okay, so can you see? Here's the other end. And when we pull, just give it a nice gentle pull, both directions. Don't pull too fast, too hard. We want to make sure that we're getting that real pretty knot there in the middle. And you can see when we need to manipulate the size, we can simply just pull it down, give it another tug. Remember, every time you give it a tug, it's going to grow a little bit. So if we wanted this bow to be really, really little, we want to make it actually a little bit smaller than what we want so that when we tug like that, it comes out the right size. And of course, from here, we can trim away our excess. Oops, got a little scrappy from our last bow. And that is how you can add a bow to your card. Now, if you feel this is a little too loose, it's really bothering you, you can take a mini glue dot, just pick that up with your take your pick tool. You can place it back behind your bow and give that a press, and look, no more loose bow. So that's awesome. If you feel like your ribbon got a little bit loose, you can always do that. So to create a double loop bow, you're going to take your ribbon. Again, we're leaving it on the spool. You can do this a couple different ways. You can just wrap it around your fingers if you want. Okay, you can wrap it around a clear block if that makes you happy. Let me go ahead and just show you with a clear block, and then I'll show you with my fingers. But you're just going to have a tail going one way, and you're going to wrap 1 and 2 okay? And then we've got this hanging off, right? So let's go ahead and cut that. Let me leave that there for just a second because I'm going to need another piece of ribbon to tie it together with. I did cut a lot extra and I'll show you why, because I want to make a loop and I want to kind of have that ready. This ribbon in particular it doesn't want to like hold that while I'm trying to work. You know what? And because it doesn't want to work, look what we're going to do. Clear blocks to the rescue. All right. We've always got a solution, don't we? All right. So there's those ribbons tied around. Notice I have a tail going this way and I have a tail going this way. And we can simply slide that off the block like so. Hold it together. I'm going to slide that into the loop. You're probably going, Connie, that is way too much work. I promise you it's not. And the clear blocks just kind of helped me hold it together. All right, so now we can tie this. And before I tie it too tight, I'm centering. But here's the thing. If I tie it, let's go ahead and tie it off center. Let's just make it look bad. Okay, so I'm not quite centered, right? Not a problem. We just slide. And when we're sure we have it right where we want it, make sure that's good. This is the tough part, is figuring out which one are your pieces that you tie with and which ones are the actual loops. Okay, I've got it centered there. Give it a real tight pull. At this point, go ahead and check and make sure you're still centered. And this ribbon, again, I may not have chosen the best ribbon because it's slick. One of the more cotton type ribbons may have been better, but here's the thing, I love it with this one. So when you give that pull and that tug, this ribbon, if you've got a slick ribbon like I do, you're going to want to knot it, okay? Because we want that to hold. We don't want to get going and find out that our ribbon center fell apart. Now, it's looking kind of wonky, right? We've got tails going everywhere. So you can do a couple of different things. You can leave the tails and leave 4 of them, and I think that looks nice. So we can trim that off, trim this off. And what you want to do now is to just separate the loops so that those loops, you can see that it's a double bow, right? We want that to kind of show. You know, it really, when it comes to bows, a lot of it is just manipulating the ribbon. You tell that ribbon where to go. So there's a sweet little double bow. Let me just bring in a card so you can just kind of see just how pretty and full that looks on a card. This would also be real pretty on a box of some kind because it's a nice full ribbon, okay? Now, you could also do a triple ribbon. Guess what? You're just going to go over and wrap 3 times. And I do want to just show you, if you wanted to do it just around your fingers, hold it, give yourself, you know, a tail here. Decide how wide you want your bow to be. 1, 2. Remember I said you could go 3? You could go 3, you could go 4. Whoops. And goodness, ribbon, come on. There we go. And so, yeah, it's just however many loops you want. And then we can bring those together. And there, that is how you would do a triple loop. And again, remember, it's all about how wide you spread your fingers, how wide your bow will be. Again, you could use clear blocks. You wanted great big ones, you could go this way. You could also make a little one. You could make a little baby guy going this way, right? We could do that, slide it off, and you see, for that, we'd have a little double bow. Get creative. Use your blocks, use your fingers. These are free, so hey, why not use them? That is how you create a double or triple bow. And now for something completely different. Okay, let's prepare to blow our minds. I have got some ribbon here, and again, I've left it on the spool, and I'm going to use my scissors, and I'm going to determine what size bow I want to make by how wide I'm going to open my scissors. Okay, so I think I want my loops to be about that wide. Okay, here we go. Now you're going to be careful, guys. We are working with scissors, but you know what? Sometimes when you're crafting, you use what you've got, and we typically have a good pair of scissors laying around. I'm going to leave myself a decent little tail, and I'm going to hold on to it right here. I'm going to go behind the blades. I'm going to go over the blade. I'm going to bring it around this other side and go under the blade and over the blade. Got it? Let's do that again. Are you ready? I'm on the left side and I'm over the blade. I'm going to go under the blade, over, around and under the back one, and over. That's easy, right? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and trim this off, and I'm going to give myself a little extra because what we're going to do now is we're going to take this tail and we're going to go under. Are you ready? We're going to go under all those ribbons that we did, like so. And I'm going to bring this tail together. I'm going to try to get my hands out of the way. Can you see what we've done? I'm telling you, this is when you just need to get creative. We're just going to tie it. I hope that you guys were able to follow that one. I know that one is a little wonky. Now I'm going to slide this off my scissors very gently. We don't want to cut it. And with that, we can give this another little tug. And we have a nice little bow. This one too, by the way, you do have the ability to kind of manipulate it and make it bigger. But when you're happy with it, just give it a tight tug. And look at that. You have a great little tiny ribbon. That's easy enough, right? Okay, maybe not. This is just a great way. I've seen it done with forks. I've seen it done with fingers. I didn't have as much luck because I needed both hands. But the scissors, some big, long scissors, I wouldn't recommend it with your paper snips. I think they're a little too small for this method. But remember, you could make this as wide as you needed. I'm going to show you one more time because I know it's a complicated one. Over, under, over, under, figure eight. Just remember that figure eight. And then we're going to trim off here. But once you get it kind of pulled tight, you're good. You're going to take this, what's over here on the right side. You're going to go under all those pieces of ribbon, bring it up, and we can tie. You could make this ribbon a little bit shorter too. I really did go pretty wide. But I have seen ribbon tying tools that are sticks that you can move around. Look for those. It's the same kind of method. It's just my scissors are handy, and you know what? I didn't have to buy anything extra. So that's one method. But the little stick method is also a really good method. If you find those little bow tying tools, you might check Amazon. I bet that's the type of thing you might be able to find there. So there is another method. I've got one last ribbon to show you, and I'm just going to cut off a piece of my white baker's twine. And all those bows that I made earlier, well, you remember when we cut off the tails and we had these little leftover pieces? You know what? We're going to make a bow with that leftover scrap. You know, we don't waste anything around here. So I've got that piece of baker's twine, and I'm just going to tie it in a loop, okay? Just giving myself a simple loop, okay? I'm going to tuck my piece of ribbon inside. And by the way, this piece is almost too big for this little scrap ribbon. We'll center it up and give it a good tie. Let's tie it in a knot. Again, this is one we don't want the loop to cut loose on us. So let's tie it in a knot. And at this point, you could do a couple different things. I could tie this in a little bow if I wanted to. There we go. Just a sweet little baker's twine bow that goes inside. You could also just leave it alone. Just leave the strings and just let those hang down. And that can be just a simple little look as well. But if you wanted to trim them off completely, remember, we tied it in a knot, so it's good and secure. We could just come right here, snip off the baker's twine. Of course, you see I've been manipulating that ribbon, so we can trim down the ends. And now, look at that sweet little bow. And you guys, we did it with the pieces that we cut off, the tails that we cut off. And so even our little scraps of ribbon can make a great little bow. And then if you want to attach that to a card, a mini glue dot, and look at that. The nice thing about these little scrap ribbons, they lay flat. I mean, there's not much underneath there. And so that's another really great ribbon for adding to cards when you're going to mail them and you don't want that bulk. And there you go, my friends. I hope you learned something new today. Hey, if you love ribbon, I do want to encourage you, head over to simplysimplestamping.com. Check out all the different ribbon that Stampin' Up! Has to offer. It is fantastic quality and always ties beautifully. It's one of my favorite products that we work with. You can always find that over at simplysimplestamping.com. And hey, if you haven't subscribed, take a minute to click the great big red subscribe button so you'll be notified when I'm back with a new video. And I don't want you to miss any of the videos in the Ribbon Masterclass for this month. Again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to stamp with you next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.